Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylee and I am a wedding and portrait photographer based out of Florida. And this video today is another installment of a series I'm doing where I walk you through my film journey session by session and tell you about all of my wins and my losses when learning to shoot with film. I started making these videos because I never saw any content like this on YouTube already when I was learning to shoot film. So I just started making videos that was like what I wanted to watch. So if you are watching for the first time, hi, welcome. My name is Kaylee. I've already said I'm a portrait and wedding photographer from Florida, but I'm really glad to meet you. I have links down below where you can learn a little bit more about me. You can visit my website and my social media. And I'm really excited to jump in today. So let's get you up to speed of where I'm at right now on the Kaylee film journey timeline. At this point, I have been shooting film, at the point of this session right here, which was a couple of years ago. I had been shooting film for about 6 months, off and on, and I hadn't really incorporated it into my workflow yet as a wedding and portrait photographer, but this was one of the first times that I shot film as a paid integration into my workflow, like I factored it into my session fee. So this was shot with FujiPro 400H on 35mm. I had up until this point experimented with Portra 400 only because I'd heard that it was like the flagship film to start off on when you're learning film photography. So at this point I'd been photographing Portra 400 and was pretty comfortable with Portra. But like any other wedding photographer in the industry, when you start shooting film, you see all of the gorgeous photos that people create with FujiPro 400H. In the wedding industry, Fuji 400H is like the superstar of every light and creamy and dreamy European winsome photo that you could ever imagine. And so of course I'm like, oh, let's go and grab a roll of Fuji and see what I can do. So again, at this point I'm still not using a light meter. Ooh, I know, it's so cringy, and you'll obviously see that here in a few of these images, like image 5, 6, and 7 are way underexposed, but I got away with it a little bit in images 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8. So at this point, I had been shooting Portra 400 and not using a light meter, but I was still shooting manual. I wasn't kicking it in auto or anything. I had all my settings in manual, and my little tactic that I would use is that I would just overexpose at one stop. I would rate it at box speed, and then in the viewfinder, I would scroll the shutter speed wheel until I saw that the exposure was one stop overexposed, and that's with Portra. So that's what I would do with Portra 400, but I would hear that Fuji needed to be overexposed, like way overexposed, by multiple stops in order to get that beautiful, neutral, light, creamy look, you know. So that's what I did, and I believe I remember pushing this roll of film, not pushing, but I remember pushing the shutter speed on this roll of film to like 3 stops overexposed. And so where you know, a normal, you know, exposure for shutter speed would be like 1/1000th or something on a bright and sunny day, I was shooting at like 1/125th or something like that. So I was really pushing that shutter speed. But let's go ahead and jump into this. I remember getting this roll of film back, and I used the whole roll at this session, and I was super excited to get it back. And while I was pleasantly surprised that the roll turned out, this is kind of the beginning of my downward spiral with FujiPro 400H. People, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better with my relationship with FujiPro 400H. But let's start off on the right foot here and on a good note, like my actual journey did with Fuji, and jump in. So I'm going to go ahead and add, this is Rihanna, by the way. This was a senior session that I did, and she was such a great model. She was so perfect, and she was so open to letting me shoot a roll of film, and it was so fun. So let's go ahead and add my basic preset. If you are a faithful follower, you know I like to adjust my my pop, like my brightness and contrast, and then I like to do a couple of color shifts as well. So Fujifilm has intense green undertones. It's a very cool film, and I struggled a lot in the beginning to make this roll work for me in terms of color. And eventually I went back to Portra because I thought, you know, if I'm just editing this to make it a lot warmer, I might as well just go back to Portra. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, ahead of the story, and I'm babbling a little bit too much. So let's get back on track, Kaylee. Let's go. So I applied my basic preset here, and already just my color shifts are looking a little bit funny here. So I'm going to adjust my tint a little bit because I see some greens going on here because it's just a green film and she's sitting on green grass. So let's pump up my magenta a little and see how much I can take that up before it gets too magenta-y. So let's do +5, and then I'm going to go up on like 4 for her warmth here. Okay, so I'm just probably going to keep it just like that. I'm going to bring up my saturation by 10 clicks, and my highlights are going to come down a little because she's already kind of poppy. Like her highlights on her cheeks and her face are nice, but I'm just going to help that out just a little bit and make it a little bit more poppy here. Good, that looks nice. And then I'm going to bring up my contrast just a little more so I can add that one more thing of pop. So this is, again, was a tricky image for me because I want to add more magenta because I still see green. But if I push it too much, it starts to look super purpley and it doesn't look quite right. So I am, let's see, let's get my before and my after. I'm just going to mess with my tint slider just a little bit, just until I'm satisfied. You know, I think I'm okay with that right there. Yeah, I think that looks okay to me. So, okay. And I think that's it. For this, I'm going to pop down here and help reduce the grain a little bit. No grain. Okay. Okay. And that's it. Here's my before and my after. I love how the sun is shining behind her. That's so cute. Okay, here's this. I'm going to sync these two and see if there are any changes that I need to do to this image after I sync. Ooh, hey girl. This is so cute. I love this. Let me unselect this down below. Oh, I love it. It's so pretty. You know, honestly, I don't think there's much that I want to do to this. After applying that last set of changes, I might want to bring up my shadows just a little. Oh yeah, that's way better, way better. Okay, and there's that. I only messed with my temperature and tint just a little bit. I upped my saturation, brought up my shadows, and messed down here in the tone curve to add a little bit of pop to her face and her shoulder. So one thing about Fuji is that it handles highlights and hot spots super, super well. This image was like, I think this image might have been way more than 3 stops overexposed. And look how pretty like her shoulder looks here. Like there's a hot spot here on her shoulder, but it's not like way overexposed and blown out, like where you can't tell what it is. So I like that a lot. Okay, here's this one. Let's apply again. Let's sync and see what this looks like after. Okay, okay. I like how it's looking, but I feel like I'm missing a little bit of pop. Like I don't see a lot of neutral. I see some color shifts in her chest here, and in her her arm. It's like her chest is more like red and her arm is more orange. I'm actually going to come and bring down my saturation back to 0 really quick before I do anything else. And she's also got some red around her face here. That's just in the shadows here. So I'm going to pump my contrast up just a little bit here. Let me see what the auto says about color. I'm going to keep it on auto for now because I think that helps her her skin a little bit here. So now that I've adjusted some of that magenta, I'm going to bring that tint, or not tint, I'm sorry, saturation back up, and I'm going to even push it to 20 and see what it looks like. Yeah, that's okay. I'm still not crazy about all of these colors here going on, but if I go down here to the slider, it takes the color out of her lips. I know some of you guys have like struggle with that, and I'm not going to go into any deep adjustments using these things up here, these little buttons and stuff up here, because I think that it kind of betrays my philosophy of not editing scans like way too much. Like I only want to spend just a few minutes or maybe even less than a minute on each photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this and I'm going to start over really quick. Let me see what warm looks like. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do my warm preset here. I'm going to push this up to 80. Same with the contrast. I'm going to bring my warmth up here a little bit, and also my magenta to help bring my highlights down a little, make it a little more neutral. And then my pop is going to be here. I'm going to bring that down, highlights down, and add a little bit more for my lights. And then my saturation, let's see what it looks like at 5. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Let's push up some of those shadows. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay. And I think that's honestly all I would do. It was at this point when I was editing, when I was thinking, you know, I'm not a fan of Fuji so far. Actually, I see some black in her hair that needs to come down just a little, make her hair a little bit more poppy. There we go. So far, I'm just not a huge fan of Fuji, like at this point right here. It was also an overcast day, and where she's standing as the sun came out, like for just a hot minute, you know, right here. And I was a little bit exasperated when I was editing this, and so I was like, ugh. I ended up liking it in the end, but, you know, this is just me vocalizing how I was feeling in my journey so far. Okay, let's synchronize these two for the settings. Okay, and I think that's pretty much all I would do here. So this is a really great example, or really great, I guess, notification, or a great point for me to make that I had learned and knew already that Portra 400 is a more contrasty film. And I'd heard that Fuji was more neutral and that there wouldn't be so many dark spots and hot spots just depending on where you shot. But this right here to me almost looks like Portra except with a different color profile, because I shot with like some weird color things going on back here. This wasn't the best choice of a background, you know, location, because there's some dark grape trees over here, sea grape trees over here, and then these dead palm tree leaves back here. Just not a big fan, but you know, you live and you learn. That's what this whole series is about. It's just learning film. So I think I'm pretty much going to leave this as it is. Yeah, that looks good to me. So let's move on to this right here. So automatically we see, obviously, this is way, way underexposed. I was shooting this out on the beach, and I think that I had pushed my shutter speed past what could be recorded on that little light meter on the inside of the viewfinder, and I was a little bit uncomfortable pushing it up any higher because I'd already probably pushed it past 3, you know, the 3 stops over exposure level there. So I was like, I don't know what to do. So obviously I can't really do anything color-wise because you just see the heavy underexposure here. Look, there's even like little green dots in the film. This is how you can see that green color profile and those green undertones. But I was so disappointed because I think this is a beautiful picture, but if had it been exposed correctly, it would have been even more beautiful. So I'm just going to add this here. I'm not going to do warm. Yeah, let's see what it looks like with this basic preset, because I'd like how my tones are looking for warm, because it kind of takes away some of that that grain. But so let's take our blacks down to help her hair a little. I know that adds a lot more contrast and a lot of darkness, but I'm going to bring up my shadows some. No, actually, I'm going to bring my shadows back down. And then I'm just going to turn this into black and white, y'all. I'm just going to push that saturation and make it black and white. I think that's the best choice for this image here, because I was still learning, and you know, you've been along for the ride. You know what's happening. So I'm going to turn that into black and white. I'm going to try warm, like my little preset 2 here that I've created that I use sometimes, and bring the saturation down. Ooh, I kind of like that. Let me bring my blacks down some. Okay, yep, I think that's going to be it for me. That's good. So I'm going to leave that be for now. Minimal edits. Okay, actually, sorry, I'm going to go back and crop this in just a little bit. Put her eye in that third frame there. Okay, that much better. Okay, this one here, love it again, but you see a lot of heavy contrast down here, shadows, and it's just a contrasty image. See how like kind of out of focus it is? Like when you push back, it looks a little bit okay, but just here you can see it's a little bit just out of focus, and my aperture wasn't wide open. So let's add my, I'm going to add this warm preset here and push this a little bit more to maybe 80. My contrast looks good. Let me see what my saturation looks like. Yeah, I think that adds a little bit of color here. Let me see what auto looks like here, because I don't see any noticeable color shifts that I want to change. So something that I did in this image, or actually no, it was this next image, is that I tried to kind of go in and bring back a little bit of detail in the sky here. But I decided not to do that just because I like the depth of the image. So I think that's all I'm going to do to this image right here. I might see what it looks like with a little more green. Nah, let's keep it normal. Okay, and that looks good. Let's go next. Okay, so this image pretty much I did just really minimal color and tone edits on it. I pushed my exposure a little bit, upped my shadows some, and this isn't going to be a perfect image by any means at all, but I wanted to really play with this color up here. So what I did, I remember specifically, is that I add a little bit of pop here, but I went down into this color, this HSL color panel down here, and I like really pushed up my blues and my aquas. See here? See the, now here's no aqua, and now here's the aqua. And same for blue. I really wanted to push that color because that was just so beautiful to me, and it didn't show up in her skin, and I was satisfied with that. So, yep, I think that's all that I'm going to do for now for this. This was just a couple of frames that I wanted to save from this shoot, so we can do whatever we want with them now. So, that looks good. Okay, and lastly, ooh, I love this image. I'm going to take this, synchronize it with this, and a little too warm. Nope, let's reset and try again. I don't like that. Okay, so here is my basic preset. I'm going to push to 70, add a little more contrast, pull up my shadows, bring my blacks down a little because I want her hair to still have some depth. I'm going to up my saturation by 5. And I'm going to play with my greens a little bit here. My greens are already nice and beautiful and cool, but I'm just going to add a little bit more coolness and take down, bring up my saturation just a little bit. Yeah, that looks good to me. And then add my signature pop that I always like to do. And I think that's it for me. Okay, there we go. Let's go through all of our final images. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so important points from today is that this was the first time that I had shot FujiPro 400H. I wasn't using a light meter, and so I exposed incorrectly for a lot of these images. But I did learn that depending on your weather and your lighting situation, Fuji is really, it is very flexible, I guess. I was surprised that I pushed it 3 stops at least, and that these images came out like this, but for an overcast and a cloudy day, it was definitely flexible and produced some really pretty images. And lastly, it's a cooler film, so you're going to get a lot of green and maybe a few orangey undertones. It's just a cool film. It's got blues, greens, and maybe some oranges. So, okay, thank you again for joining me. I'm going to call this to a halt and a stop now. I am considering starting a private Facebook group for any of my viewers who want to have a support group for editing, whether it be film scans or digital scans. Just have some support from some other people and some feedback on some of your images if you like constructive criticism, or if you like just some suggestions on edits, or if you want a good community that will support you in your film journey. Let me know, because I have not created that Facebook group yet, but I think it would be really fun. So you can visit my website and the session, this exact session post on my website, and I've got all my links below. Thank you for joining me. Bye. Be blessed.